Okay, here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Keptn Community and Developer Meeting. I already see a couple of folks joining, which is great. And I will also put this link again in the chat. So everyone who's joining can actually add himself. We're following, again, as a CNCF project, the CNCF Code of Conduct. And with this, I think we can already get started. We have a couple of newcomers here to the Keptn community, so a big welcome also to those that are new to the community or new to the Keptn project. And we've just discussed this week a little bit on Slack on the developer experience on Windows. And Joao is joining here today. And we kind of agreed that you will share a little bit on your experiences, and also Himant is joining. He's also working on as a developer and contributor to Keptn, I think on a Windows machine. So and the rest of the team, a lot of us are working on Linux machines or Mac machines. So it would be cool to have a discussion on this, to learn a little bit about what we can do to improve the developing experience. And I can hand over. I already promoted you so that you can also share your screen if you want to share. If you have a couple of notes, that would be cool.
Yeah. All right.
So the stage is all yours.
No pressure. I guess you can see it, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, I think it's the first time I see the Windows bar on the top.
What? Yeah, I always use the top. I don't know why. I find it better.
Cool.
I don't know if the Zoom thing goes away at some point, but so.
We can't see it, so for us it's
okay.
Really good to see.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm João. I work for Dynatrace, and I am trying to help on some things related to Keptn. A background, I came from .NET development more or less, and for almost few months or 6 months or so, I've been dealing with OpenTelemetry. I've been getting involved with OpenTelemetry and things like that. So I am currently working on trying to instrument Keptn with OpenTelemetry. So the developers of Keptn and the users of Keptn can also see nice traces and see what's happening when you trigger the things in Keptn. And as part of my starting, I have a Windows machine, and I wanted to run everything. So I could be able to be productive and start developing. And it was not really easy. There was a lot of bumps on the way, but I documented my steps, and hopefully I will share with you now. I hope we can help. So basically, the idea is that you have a Windows machine, and via this Windows Linux subsystems for Linux, it's called WSL. Actually, there's a type here. So basically, via this Linux running on Windows, then I can install Keptn and all the dependencies in this, and still connect from my Windows machine. So my steps were that like the basic, you need to have a Windows machine with probably the latest build. So then you first need to install the WSL on Windows. It's pretty easy. There's this Microsoft link. It's just a few commands. You enable it, and then you just download from the Microsoft store the distribution that you want. There's a couple of them. There's SUSE, there's Ubuntu. So I just used Ubuntu. And then you need Docker, of course. And so you install Docker for Windows on your computer. And you need to have switch, because Docker for Windows comes with use Hyper-V and things like that. So you need to change to use the WSL. based engine. So then you will use the Linux engine and all that stuff. So if you do the first, if you have already, or if you do the first step already, so you enable WSL and then you install Docker, it will automatically have this already set up. So you go to the settings and then there's this use WSL2 based engine. But if you have done this, the first step, then automatically that, but you can check, you need to check, if not, then you enable it. And then the most painful part to figure out was the third step is, after I had everything installed, I followed the Keptn installations that I will describe below. Yeah, but I didn't follow the steps that is on the getting started page from Keptn. Everything was installed and everything looked good into the Kubernetes cluster. Everything seemed fine. There was all the ports were being forward and all worked, but I couldn't reach the bridge, the Keptn bridge from my Windows PC, for example. I couldn't reach Prometheus from my Windows PC. Like nothing really worked. And then after a day or so of investigation, then I found this GitHub issue, which I didn't read because it's really, really big and it's really complicated. But the gist of it is that every time that you reboot the computer, your Windows machine, the WSL is a VM, so it gets a new IP address, and this IP address is to be able to forward the connection between your Windows to WSL. The Fire blocks it, so you need to open the ports on the Windows firewall. And then because of the IP changes, so every time you restart the computer, you need to open the ports again, which is really annoying. And that's what this GitHub issue talks about. And someone gladly provided a script, a PowerShell script that identifies the IP, and then you put the ports that you want to open in the script, and then it works. Yeah, so I will send this file later to you, and you can. Yeah. But so then I run this. I use the Keptn ports. I think it's 8082 or something. That is by default forward, and then it worked. Yeah. So
can I ask a question here?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So the VM it's not exposed on localhost, so you will have to, or the WSL. So you have to. This just gets a random IP, and you have to figure out what it is, or can you kind of map it to localhost? Because for me, it's a couple of years when I last did the WSL development. But I think I never run into this issue. So
so the thing was that it's also talking about in this issue, but the thing is that. Some time ago, there was this WSL1, let's call it 1, it was the initial version. And if you ran anything on it, you would be able to just do localhost on Windows, and it worked. But it worked because, I don't know the details specifically, but it worked because they used, it was not like a full Linux kernel, and they used some Windows connections and so on.
So that what actually here is, if I may pitch in, what actually happens here is with the introduction of WSL2, what the Microsoft folks did is they introduced a network bridge between the host OS, that is the Windows, and the WSL2. But the problem is that due to the network card, the bridge is not a perfect implementation. So sometimes your WSL network, the virtual network card gets assigned a different IP address than the Windows actual hardware network card. So sometimes you cannot localhost directly using WSL2. And if that's the case, sometimes restarting the WSL, the hypervisor engine, would fix the issue. So this is a very active issue in WSL. They're working on it.
Yeah. So what happened is in WSL1 everything worked. So you could reach localhost, and then when they released this new version that they changed, it was a complete revamp, and now I use a full Linux kernel. It's not like the hack was before, but they also changed the network parts. But the IP is changed every time that you restart the computer. So if you restart the computer, it gets a new IP. And for example, if I run a Docker container, let's say I run SQL Server or MongoDB as just like a container on Linux. Yeah. For example, I can show you like I can show you a quick demo. So this, if I do Docker PS, like to see the containers, I just have the Keptn. Yeah. So but I also have Jaeger that I just ran once. So let's try to find the container for Jaeger. Okay, so Docker run. Right. Okay, I don't know what's happening in my computer now. But anyway, so for example, let's say that this worked and then I started Jaeger or any other container on Linux. Then I would be able to go to my browser normally and then just do like localhost like this. And I would be able to reach Jaeger. It works. But the case with Keptn is that it's inside Kubernetes, right? So there's like another layer, yeah. And then this doesn't work, yeah. So I cannot just do localhost, yeah. For some reason, it doesn't work, and the way it works. So if I run this PowerShell script that opens the ports on the firewall, then I can reach Keptn. For example, it's running now. I can reach via this, yeah. So this IP here, yeah. So it works, yeah. There's some other. I think there's some other ways to map this to localhost, so you don't have to do all this. But yeah. But yeah, so the WSL things, and before even this that I said to that if I run any container on my computer on my Linux distribution, like I tried to do with Jaeger, this also didn't work before, but they fixed this some time ago, so now it works. But because it's inside Kubernetes, that's why I assume that it doesn't work. Yeah, but running this script, and there's a lot of other workarounds. So this is just one. Yeah, there's some DNS as well. People try to change, but this was the thing that worked for me, so I just stick to that script. Yeah, but that worked well. Yeah. So yeah, so this is quite an annoyance. But once this is done, figure out, then it works, and you can create a scheduled task window. So every time that you log in, it executes this, so you don't have to worry too much about it. Or every time you log in, it executes again in case the IP changes. So once you do it once, it kind of gets transparent, so you don't have to bother too much after it. Yeah, and then.
But this is something that has to be done kind of quite regularly, and also Hima faced this issue that sometimes the WSL is not, or the bridging of the IP address is not working.
This never happened to me now so far. This never happened to me. The only thing that happens that if I forgot to run the script, then I cannot reach it. But then as soon as I run the script, then it works.
But if maybe we should put this somewhere also in the Keptn developer documentation, so that if developers on Windows want to run it, we can have
exactly.
a script or a README that says Keptn developer.
What I think is basically this was a great tutorial and documentation. But what I personally feel is if we run like at the end of the day, although this is on Windows, this is ideally running Keptn inside a Linux virtual machine that is running on Windows.
Yeah.
Right. So what eventually I figured out is the Docker on Windows, how it works is it actually initializes its own Linux virtual machine, and it runs Kubernetes and everything on top of that. It runs the Kubernetes node on top of that.
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can literally run, and one other disadvantages of using WSL, if I put Keptn on WSL, I cannot use IDs such as Golang because they do not have integrations with WSL yet because of the network and disk issues. Golang, you cannot work with Golang. You can only work with Visual Studio Code or Vim. and not all developers prefer Vim or Visual Studio Code. So
Yeah.
what I researched around is that you can also run Keptn on Docker itself, and you can access it using PowerShell. And the fun advantage that you get is you can use Golang. So using Golang, you can run all your integration tests. You can do pretty much everything that you do on Linux. And if you want to run any terminal related things, you can do it on PowerShell itself. The reason I'm suggesting this is that because the folks at Microsoft are really working towards these two issues that has been predominant over WSL2. That is their network issue, the network bridge that we talked about. Like maybe the script is a very good workaround. I came across this, but the thing is, it is very hardware dependent. The issue happens on some Windows machines and it does not. So the Microsoft folks themselves have a hard time figuring it out. And they are releasing a fix with the next major release, which also supports GUI on WSL. So this could be a good documentation to add on to, but I'd also suggest we also add documentation regarding running Keptn plainly on Windows, that is without WSL. So
but how do I do that?
But
how do I do that?
You just need to install Docker Hub. So like if you just install Docker Hub and you just need Golang and you need PowerShell. These are the three things you need. Because for one of the issues that I solved for Keptn, I think it was related to something like PowerShell issue. I think Jonas was reviewing the issue. So it was pretty much long ago. So I had set up a pure Keptn development setup on Windows, and it kind of worked. So maybe I can.
How do you? But just wanted to understand. So you install. So okay. So I have Docker on my Windows normally, but then how do you install? Because you need a Kubernetes cluster, right? On your Windows machine. Yeah.
The thing is what Docker Hub essentially does is, like, if you open Docker Hub right now on your PC.
But what kind of image do you download from Docker Hub? Is it the Keptn image? Is it a specific image?
It's a normal thing. It's the same thing that you do on Linux, because Docker Hub itself is running a Linux virtual machine inside. Yeah, so it's all Unix commands. So you can use the PowerShell to pull the normal Keptn images. That would work. In fact, that works. So the Keptn would be running as normal as it. It doesn't matter if you're installing it from WSL or PowerShell, because it's going to pull the same image and run it on the Kubernetes cluster. So the only thing is that maybe you won't get K3D support. You will have to use kind instead, because that is what Windows or Docker rolls out of the box for Windows.
Because Q3D doesn't work on Windows, right?
Correct. So the only drawback is they are forced to use either kind or Minikube. And I'm not really sure if Minikube also works with Windows, but kind definitely does.
Yeah, Minikube works, but I didn't try to run Keptn on Minikube. I was going to, but yeah, I just wanted to continue with my task. I didn't want to lose too much time, but yeah. Maybe that's one thing. So if Minikube works, then I don't need to install it on WSL or anything. I can just install my Windows that is running Docker. That's fine. It also works. But the WSL route was because I followed the tutorial from Keptn website, and it's Q3D. So then that doesn't work on Windows. Yeah, even the Q3D website says that I think it's just Mac and Linux.
So I think before the older versions of the Keptn documentation, we had included support for all kinds of Kubernetes distros. I think we had included support for K3D, Minikube, and I think in the later releases of the documentation, we just support K3D, if I'm not wrong.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe
back for the Windows users, that would be great.
Yeah, but if you can maybe put some steps that, like you said, that you did with Docker and so on, then if you can do it like just high level steps, then I would also be interested in trying. Because also another problem that I'm facing now is that when running on WSL now, all this, my computer is getting quite like you can see now the VM here is like 12 gigabytes. And before that, like right before joining, my computer crashed because it was taking like 25 gigabytes of RAM. and then I think it just ran out of memory and then just had a blue screen. So yeah, it consumes a lot of resource. Yeah, this WSL and all this VMs and stuff. So it's not really great. I'd say. When it works, it's quite nice. All works well. But for example, I'm developing now the Keptn, and I'm running the scaffold to build and to run everything, and then the memory just gets out of control. It's a lot. Yeah. But yeah, but if you can put this steps, then it will be great, because then maybe it's better than rely on this.
Yeah. So maybe we can continue on the same Slack thread. Maybe I can put down a Markdown script, which states all the steps step by step, so that you can install Keptn on pure Windows without using WSL, and maybe you can give it a try and see if it works.
Yeah, that'll be great. I can try on VM also, so I can get a clean slate and things like that. Yeah, and then the rest of my document is just following the steps on the website. As I was doing, I recorded some things that but I can do this. I can send it after, format a little bit better. Yeah. So for example, in the getting started guide, it says like it says to run a couple of scripts, a couple of steps, and one of them is missing, I think. Yeah, so I think when it gets to the fourth step here, it needs Helm install. I don't know which one. I think it's either this or the fifth step, or either four of it. But either of these, when you run it, you get an error, and it's because one of these steps require Helm, and if you're just getting started, you don't have Helm, and it fails.
Can you scroll up a little bit? I think we've already added it to the prerequisites. Even a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the prerequisites, but yeah, you're right. Okay. It's not. Maybe it was not that obvious. Also, Docker or kubectl. So there are a couple of different dependencies. And then also, if you're running purely on Windows without the WSL, then obviously it also won't work because of all this SH.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the funny thing is, I also had missed the Helm thing, and I even in fact opened an issue regarding the same on the Keptn website.
There you go.
Yeah, and Christian had pointed out that it's in prerequisite. So I went ahead and made a PR. So the error you see that Helm is not installed, that was the PR I made so that people are aware that they need Helm.
Yeah, but I mean, the script gave a clear message like Helm not found or something. It's like, okay, I just thought. Yeah, no, but I failed to see here, so I just went straight to the scripts, of course.
Yeah, but I think as a next step, what would be really cool is that if you can join some forces and provide your combined knowledge on what we've just discussed. I've already in our meeting document, I've just linked the kind of the developer documentation. I can share again.
I stopped sharing, yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll share again. So I've just linked here the developer documentation so that we can also include it here. Sorry, it's in the docs, and we have some documentation here. So we could basically kind of revamp this and really provide here more guidance, how to set up, what is the what is a good environment on Windows, which way to go. For the quick start, we went with K3D, which was pretty well working on my end. I did the tests on a little bit older Mac machine. It used less resources than Kind, but if everything is working very similar on Kind and on Windows and on Linux, then we can also go for like the developer experience to suggest Kind there. There are no hard feelings which ones to use. It was just based on personal experience, based on some.
Okay, what is the name of this one? Kind, you said? I'm not aware of this. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Kind, Kind.
Okay, like the word
it's
kind.
I think it's Kubernetes in Docker or something like this. I'll put it here.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's similar as K3D again.
So maybe we can give a clear mention that K3D is preferred if you're using a Nix machine, and maybe Minikube or Kind if you're on a Windows machine. Because K3D does like save a lot of resources. Like I think that's a very significant save in resources. So we should definitely push people to K3D if it works fine for them.
Yeah, then we can have like a K3D as the preferred option for Linux instances, and for the others we go with Kind. But it would be cool if you can kind of level up our instructions here, because with all the learnings you already have, this would really help others to get started.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can continue in the chat there. What would be the best? Just the help one, or we start a new between us, and then once we have something, I mean, we can figure out. Doesn't matter now.
We can even open up a dedicated channel. It's like, or we can discuss this in the in one of the channels on Slack. I'm also inviting others that are joining this call. If you have any questions or comments on this, feel free to type them in the chat, or I'm also happy if you indicate that you have a question to open up your mics. I know that more people are joining here. So just let us know if you want to join the conversation and join the discussion. Another topic that I want to hand over, because in the interest of time, I also want to discuss the second part that you just mentioned with OpenTelemetry. But before we go here, I just kind of give everyone the chance to ask some questions here to Hemant or Java. If not, then I would have a question on the second part that you mentioned, the support for OpenTelemetry inside Keptn. So basically instrumenting Keptn, if I understood correctly, instrumenting Keptn with OpenTelemetry so that you can get some, and I've already written my questions here in the meeting document. So which services actually do you start with, and how can the developer benefit from this support? How can someone then use it going forward? Just I'm frozen.
Did we lose Joao? Oh, no, he's back.
Some connection issues, I guess.
Am I still here?
Yes.
Was it just me, or was it everyone?
For me as well. It was cutting was really, really weird. Yeah, I think it's okay now again.
I think it might have been an issue with Zoom in general. Okay, so my question was, your plan to provide the support for OpenTelemetry. Where do you start, and how can everyone benefit from it?
Yeah, so so we decided to start with the Shipyard Controller. Because the insights that I got from the team there is it's the most, let's say, critical component, it's the central part, so it makes sense to start with that one. So that's what I started. It's still like a major work in progress. It's a lot, but so basically I started instrumenting, so it took me some time to get around it, understand it, how it works, and so on. But now I dig into it, and so I'm instrumenting the Shipyard Controller, and then as part of it, I also did instrumentation on the distributor, because without the distributor, the trace and the connection between them are more or less lost. And then we also had to let's say decide or tackle the approach, because with, I don't know if everyone is familiar with OpenTelemetry. Maybe if not, then I can just maybe explain a little bit what it is. Maybe if everyone wants me to explain a little bit what it is. And
sure. Do you want to share your screen or?
I guess I don't know if I don't have much at this point to share about it, but I can. What I can share is maybe maybe getting ahead, but this is more or less what I was doing. Some example of a trace, that I already have working. But yeah, I will just give a quick overview. Maybe the participants don't know about what is OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry is a project that it's also a CNCF project, but it aims to add observability into service. Yeah, so basically, the idea is that you install it, and then there's a bunch of what they call auto-instrumented libraries. So, for example, if you use things like Gin, for example, in Go. Then you install the Gin package, and all the incoming requests and outgoing requests, they are already, let's say, traced. And so they are already like captured by OpenTelemetry, and then they all build this correlation automatically. Yeah, so and then in the end, you can have the full like story of what happened in your service and in whatever you're using. Yeah? And OpenTelemetry is it's cool because it's like a it's like a generic approach. You're not bound to any vendor, to any company or anything, and you install the package on your service, and yeah, you instrument it or use the automatic instrumentation, and then later on you can decide to which backend you want to build. For example, you can send to Dynatrace, you can send to any other vendor. That you can do then post analysis and so on, build dashboards and all this kind of cool thing. Yeah, so, and then as I said, then I started with the Shipyard, yeah, and then still work in progress, yeah, but yeah, so this is, you can see, this is like what I had today for triggering an evaluation in the Spot data demo that we have there. So I had Keptn running with the Spot data, and then I trigger an evaluation. And then you can see here more or less what happened. So yeah, so you can see, for example, that because I use the CLI, right? So I trigger an evaluation from the CLI. Then you can see like this 3 blue first here is with the incoming request from the evaluation endpoint, in the evaluation endpoint.
This time it's not me.
Oh, I think Joao is frozen.
Yeah, this time it's Wi-Fi in Vienna. The capital of Austria has problems with the Wi-Fi.
Really cool what he's showing us. I mean, having this instrumentation gives quite a lot of insights into what's ongoing.
Did everyone drop as well? Or?
No,
welcome
back.
Sorry.
But I think so. It was really cool the screenshot that we just saw. One question from my end is: does it only the changes? Does it only affect the distributor image, or does every integration has to update something in the code base, or can it be handled on the level of the distributor?
No. So, for example, I'm changing the distributor image as well. So what it will do is, if the incoming request that arrives into the distributor, if that incoming request has the OpenTelemetry standard header that contains the trace and so on. So if that happens, then what the distributor will do is it will grab that and will put inside the event as a so cloud, the SDK that we use, the cloud events, they have support for adding what's called trace parent, which is the name of the field that contains the trace ID and the things that you use to do this propagation. So the distributor will put this inside the event, and then it will send to the queue and to nodes, and whoever is receiving that later will receive the request that comes out of the distributor to whatever Keptn service is listening. Then it will contain the trace again, and then if the other service is instrumented, then the trace will continue more or less. Yeah. But to come back to your question, yeah. So for example, I instrumented I'm doing the evaluation, and as part of the evaluation, the lighthouse service is invoked, right? And I had to touch that one as well. I had to deal with the trace that is incoming, and I had to instrument the cloud events client that is listening for the events. So it's like you need to install the package and the OpenTelemetry package, and it more or less work. Yeah. So it depends on the use case. Yeah. So for example, if it's HTTP requests like this, you like I said, you install the auto instrumentation library, and then everything will work. Yeah, automatically. You don't have to modify your code. Yeah.
But what I do have to modify is this dependency. Or
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You need to add the
Okay.
You need to add the SDK. Yeah.
Okay.
For example, the auto instrumentation. If you want, I can share how it looks like more or less. For example,
Sure.
But yeah, let's do that. Hopefully my connection doesn't drop again.
But you just added the dependency and no change in the code was needed for the Lighthouse service.
No, not much. I can share. I can show you how it looks like now. Let's see. I don't have it. Let's open it. Yeah, so I am now in the Lighthouse service. And then what I have to do is, so the way OpenTelemetry works is there's two spaces. There's the API, which is just like just like interfaces. They're empty. Yeah. So
Joao,
yeah.
Could we take a look at the GIF diff? Meaning,
yeah, sure.
So we could actually see what you have added and what have been changed.
Yeah. Are you able to see it? Yeah, so we're looking now at main. Yeah. There's all the imports, yeah, but you can see that I had to add the OpenTelemetry dependencies. Yeah. But then what I did is you need to start the tracer, what it's called. Yeah. So you need to configure the SDK to say where to send to. In this case, I'm sending it to Jaeger. So that's what this part here does. There's a function down there that initialize things. And then the actual change that I have to do to make it propagation works is before we had this cloud events, we created the HTTP client from cloud events. And what I had to do is I had to add this part here. Yeah? It's a middleware here, and then you have to wrap it with the OpenTelemetry handler. What this will do is that every request that comes into the server of the cloud events client that's listening, OpenTelemetry will create this wrapper around, and then it will say, okay, it will observe the request that's incoming, and then look at the headers. And if the header contains the trace parent header, then it will automatically start a span that connects with the one that's incoming. So it will continue the trace. Yeah? If not, for example, if the server that is calling this is not instrumented yet, so there's no header, then it will just create the root span, the root trace. Yeah? So this will be the starting point. Yeah? But that's what I had to change here. And then here it's also using the new thing from Cloud Events as well. They call it Observability Service. Yeah. What this will do is that every time that you send a request, send an event via Cloud Events, there's this hook point where you can configure it to also to create span. So when you're sending an event, automatically will create a span for you. And this is all from Cloud Events. And I think that was it. Yeah. And then, of course, in Go, the big thing to make propagation work is the context object from Go. So And it's important that you, every time that you have something that you want to be traced, you need to pass down the context, because the context object here that you're seeing here will be the one that contains the OpenTelemetry tray, the current span that is happening at this moment. So if you don't pass the context around, then the tracing of the request will not, it's not gonna work. Yeah? But that was the change that I did. Yeah, it was this. So here we start the SDK. I configure, for example, I want to be a batcher exporter to export in batches. I say which exporter I want to do. So in this case, it's Jaeger. And then in this case, you can configure to, there's number of exporters. There's export to Dynatrace. There's what usually is recommended is you have this collector, the OpenTelemetry collector, which is sent to the collector, and then the collector, you can do all sorts of things. For example, you can massage the data, you can remove data, you can remove, for example, sensitive data, and then from the collector, you can send to any backend. In this case, I'm just sending directly.
Can I just ask a question for the so Keptn consists of a couple of different services, and then usually a Keptn user, they install more services. So let's assume we have Keptn core. We might need to touch a lot of different services. It's not very complicated, I guess, to bring in all these changes, because they will look similar to each of those services, because it's basically when it starts to handle anything, then it will will be instrumented. But for others, like in services that we see quite often are like our JMeter or low-cost service, so some kind of test integrations. And they have been provided also by the community, and sometimes they are then it's a combination of community and the Keptn core team that is working on this. But is there a way to only change the distributor and update the distributor? So you have to go into the code, and you have to have a look if the code is in most of the services are in Go, but we recently got a contribution. It's written in Java. And so we need to take the Java SDK and the Java dependencies for hotel.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So this code change we cannot really avoid, and it has to be done in all the different services. Otherwise, we lose the trace, and when we lose it, it won't come back, right? So
no. Yeah. So for example, what I'm doing now, as I said, I'm working on the evaluation, right? So the point where I'm now, I instrumented the Lighthouse. But I checked with the team. So the next thing, for example, I'm using Prometheus, right?
So you will also need to instrument the Prometheus service, because this will fetch the SLIs for you.
Sorry, I froze a little bit here. Yeah, exactly. So to be able to get the full trace, then I need to also instrument the Prometheus service. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't see the events that the Prometheus service fired. Yeah. And like in general, if it's for example a web application, like you have a server and it just receives requests and then, for example, call the database. Usually, if there's already like the libraries, for example, the MongoDB library that you use to connect with Mongo, there's already auto instrumentation for it on OpenTelemetry, and the same for Gin and so on. So if your application uses one of these libraries, that there are already libraries from OpenTelemetry, from the community for it, you just add this library, configure this line that I did here, you configure the tracer, and that's it. You don't have to actually change your code. Everything works automatically. You will find all the requests and all will work. Yeah. But the Keptn is a bit different because it's message based. Yeah. So and then because the message gets persisted, for example, in the Shipyard, the message gets persisted at some point into the database, and then there's this background service in the Shipyard that pulls this message and then sends them. So at that point, the background process is not aware of any request anymore. It's just some process, right? That doesn't have any context or doesn't know where this came from. Yeah? So that's why then I had to, this part requires a little bit more change, because I need to put the trace information inside the event, because it gets persisted. And then once this other process that's completely asynchronous reads this event that is going to dispatch, then I need to read the trace so I can start it or continue it. Yeah. Without this information, I cannot continue the flow. Maybe if I can show you the image again. For example, don't know if I can draw anything here. Yeah. So, for example, what happens is the 3 first spend in the Shipyard Controller is because I trigger it. And then what happens here, for example, the distributor send, it will send to NATS, to the queue. But then the second one that I'm hovering now here, the receiver NATS process, is already completely separate. Is the distributor that is pulling from the queue. Yeah. So there's no HTTP request now. Everything is gone. Yeah. But because I built I put the trace information inside the event, then at this point here, I can continue the trace. So I read from the event, recreate the Go context, and then I continue again. Yeah. And that's the part which requires like some work, more work. Yeah. But to go back to the question, like, for example, if I'm writing my own Keptn service, and I want my service to participate into the trace, what the users will most likely have to do is what I basically did in the Lighthouse. Yeah? So they just install the packages, they configure the trace that they want to send. Yeah. And of course, I will also work on this. That will probably add this to the sandbox or to some documentation. How, for example, how to deploy a Jaeger into the cluster, or how to connect with Dynatrace and any other backend. But this code here probably will be also in this utils package, so people don't have to do this all the time, right? So this could be like something that is shared. So it's easy, and then they just have to configure the cloud events HTTP to be instrumental, and then that's it. The request that arrives to their Keptn custom service will be instrumented, and the outgoing that they do, it will also be. So all will mostly work. Yeah.
Cool. Hemant had a comment on this. Do you want to directly share this?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting use case, and I think like that could be more potential, like not only OpenTelemetry, there could be many other integrations alongside this. So this made me think that, is it possible, like for the Keptn code distributor or Lighthouse, I haven't looked much at the code base, but is it possible for them to expose certain APIs so that as developers we can write our own add-on or module? Like instead of you like modifying the source code, maybe you can build a small add-on package. Like you have to use OpenTelemetry and utilize those APIs, and it could just work out of the box rather than modifying the source.
I think it could work as a plugin or something.
Exactly.
But maybe that could work. Yeah. But in this case, I think for the distributor, I think it makes sense to instrument the code like that, because at some point, in some points, manual instrumentation, I think it makes sense, yeah, because you have more control of what you want to put, for example, into the trace. Because when you create the span, you can put like any information more or less. You can put the event ID or whatever, yeah. So I think in some places, I think it makes sense that is like a plugin or something that you can do it. Maybe could be for the custom Keptn services that it does kind of automatically. Yeah, but the tricky part is you need to find the correct place or spot to hook into something that you can like inject or augment. That's the tricky part, is what this middleware from OpenTelemetry more or less does. Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting use case for also for the job executor service of Keptn, that basically executes or runs a container image, and the job executor itself does the sending of a started event and a finished event. And if the job executor itself already can send back the generic part of OpenTelemetry, like it started and it ended, we cannot go deeper with the approach of a job executor because it just executes a container image, and we cannot go into the container image. But also including it already into the job executor would at least not break the whole trace. So at least we would see when the job executor started, then we just see, okay, it was running, I don't know, the K6S image, and then after 20 minutes it finished, and we see there was one task or one thing, or whatever it was, there was one process going on for 20 minutes, and it continued afterwards. So I think this should also be included in the. I'm really looking forward to see this in more services, and then I think we should have the discussion again on how to bring this also in the broader ecosystem. Because if it's not implemented in all the different services, then it will break whenever you do, let's say, a test execution, or whenever you do. So we need to bring it to the ecosystem.
Exactly. Yeah. So if the other, but this is not a problem with. This is not like a difficulty with neither OpenTelemetry or Keptn. Yeah. It's usually the way it works. If you use any other like backend or any other solution for this, any other instrumentation, that is always like this. Yeah. Like if the other moving parts of the solution, they are not aware of the instrumentation, then it will break. Yeah. For example, what also happens a lot is, and that's what OpenTelemetry is trying to solve, is that this header that I mentioned is the most important part, because it contains the trace ID and the span ID, and this is a standard. That's what they are working for. Yeah, there's the W3C committee, and they define the standard. And the good thing is that if any service, any language or anything, that if they are aware of this header and then they know how to send it back and read it, then it will all work. Yeah. And the problem so far was that, for example, if let's say that Keptn is using some instrumentation, for example, it's using Jaeger, but then the customer is using some Amazon or something, then the header is not compatible. Then even if both of them are instrumented, but they don't know about each other, this header, because one use one pattern, the other use another, then the trace is also lost or broken. Yeah? You lose parts of it because they don't know how to talk to each other. And that's one nice thing about OpenTelemetry, because it's a standard. The header is a standard, so you can send to any backend. It doesn't matter if you write in Java or Go, as long as you know how to extract the header and continue with it, then you're good to go. And all will work. And as you said, if the moving parts are instrumented, the background, the queue, or anything, and if they are properly propagated, then it will work. It's rather tricky on Keptn because, like I said, because it's message based, and because things are asynchronous. It's not like a request comes and then go to the database and you're done. And that is very easy to instrument. And then you can get away just with a few lines of code, just adding the auto instrumentation. But when you're dealing with message-based systems, then then you need to think a bit better, because you need to find a way to retrieve the message and continue. If the message had trace, you need to continue it down the chain.
Pretty cool, and really looking forward. Sorry, seeing this. Since we are already a little bit, we're approaching the top of the hour. So let me just share again and have a look at the other agenda items. If there are any more questions, please raise them or put them in the chat or raise the hand. I'm just looking at the attendee list if anything is coming in. If not, I would just briefly go over this because I think we don't have to open all of those.
I can also comment on those because I took a look before the meeting started. The first pull request is from Brad. He added himself to the contributor list, and the only thing that's missing is that he's forgot to sign his commit, and this needs to be done to get this pull request ready to be reviewed. Then the second one is still in draft mode. It's a contribution on the version check in the CLI. I reached out to the contributor and asked him actually to break the to fix the broken unit test, and hopefully we get some feedback on that. And last but not least, the change in the JMeter service. This one was contributed by Gabriel. I also reached, and there's also a broken JUnit test or unit test, and I reached out to him to get that one also fixed before doing a review on that.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, this is great. Then I would like to suggest two, because we kind of have two very interesting, we discussed two very interesting items in this meeting. So if we could maybe take it for the next community meeting that has this kind of community focus, that means in 2 weeks, if we can continue the conversation here and probably discuss on the documentation, or we do this discussion asynchronously on Slack, that's also fine. But whatever we come up with, or you come up with in the next 10 to 14 days, we should then also discuss it here in the community meeting. So I think I would take this as kind of a follow-up to discuss it also in the next meeting in 1 or 2 weeks. Probably next week there will be a lot of discussion around the new Keptn version. And also the OpenTelemetry part. I think that would be really great if we can also focus here again on maybe 2 weeks and have a look at all the progress that has been done, and if there is any blocker where the core team or the community can also help with.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I mean, I myself not so experienced with Go, so it would be really good if. I mean, I don't have a PR yet, but I will open one soon, and then it will be good if more experienced people look at it.
Cool. I just write this down to have a note for the next meeting follow up.
Yeah. I guess for the documentation, we can start like a chat on there, and then once we have more structure, then we can make it public to the rest. I guess that will work. So then we don't spend everyone with our discussions. I don't know, that is a way it's in.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool to get an insight there again. Cool. Then we already are hitting the top of the hour, so I know that some of you have to jump. So thanks everyone for participating and joining. It was really great to see what is going on also here in the community. And see you all in the next days on Slack. And looking forward to the next version of Keptn that should be out also pretty soon. So thanks everyone for joining. Yeah, don't forget to add yourself to this list. If there are more, just yeah, add yourself here. And thanks everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.